Hello, let's go over the basics of web development. After all, React is a framework for web applications. So to understand how React works, well, we need to know how web development really works. Note that it's not a prerequisite to be very familiar with HTML and CSS to take this course. The basics will be covered, and you can go even more in depth with other resources during this course or after. The focus of this course is on JavaScript, React, and Redux code, so that's where the majority of the time is going to be spent. Also, even if you're not super familiar with JavaScript, taking this course can be a good opportunity to kill two birds with one stone and get more familiar with JS code while also learning React. In addition, you may already know the fundamentals like what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript do and how the client-server architecture works. So if you already feel comfortable talking about those concepts, either skip this video and consider it optional, or think of this as a review video to solidify those fundamentals. The ultimate purpose of this video is to make sure that everyone starts on the same page. Okay, first up, there are three core pillars of web development: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The first pillar, HTML, takes care of the structure of pages for websites. It's the skeleton of the site, as the parts of the HTML are like bones, organized together to create overall interfaces. It defines where parts go and how the interface should be organized. HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, is written in a tag-based markup. Each tag is contained with arrow signs, and you'll notice that the tag comes in pairs, an opening one without a slash and then a closing one with a slash. Each pair of tags defines an HTML element. For example, a div is the division element, which makes a new line section of the page. There's paragraph elements, which have a little more spacing around them, and there's a handful more, like the header, span, and list elements. Again, these elements, like bones, are put together to create an overall structure. As we explore React, these elements will become a crucial aspect. So we're going to have plenty of opportunity to explore the many elements at our disposal as we build our React code. All right, that's a quick overview of HTML, and now for CSS. If HTML is the skeleton of the website, CSS is all the clothing, which makes the web apps look nice. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now, again, we will be focusing on styling bit by bit throughout this course. After all, React is a front-end framework language. So without styling, our apps would end up looking like, what flashes when a site is lagging, or those bare bones sites from the early 2000s. Now, even though this is nostalgic, modern web development has progressed a long way. So with CSS, we can transform bare bone pages into something more beautiful. So CSS is crucial, as it's what gives websites their unique appearance and form. All right, and now the best web development pillar for last, JavaScript. If HTML is the skeleton and CSS is the clothing, JavaScript is that magical force that gives web applications their power. Now, I realize this picture I painted of a web application is that it's this fancily dressed skeleton with magical abilities. After all, HTML is a skeleton, CSS is the fancy clothing, and now JavaScript is the magic power. But honestly, it's a good analogy, and bear with me here. JavaScript gives web applications their power because it allows web apps to be dynamic. It allows them to change their appearance and structure during the lifetime of the app. It makes sure that the web app can respond to user events like typing on the keyboard, clicking on the screen, or even hovering over a piece of the web application. Without JavaScript, websites have no choice but to respond to user interaction based purely on loading different HTML files at different URLs. Every page will load a completely new HTML file. If the user needs to see something new, they're going to have to click a link. This goes to a different URL where another HTML file is waiting to be loaded and displayed. This whole flow is static. Once a page is loaded, there's not much to do but read and digest the content. Nothing is going to move around within. But once there's JavaScript, the web page becomes alive and it gets all this inner dynamic functionality that can be done without having to load a completely new HTML document. So know that when something really slick is happening, in one of your web applications in the future, that's JavaScript doing all the hard work. All of this relates to React, since React is a JavaScript framework for web applications. As a web app framework, React optimizes how JavaScript is used on the web browser to make the web app dynamic. Now, that's the basic idea, and it's an introductory definition that we're going to continue to expand upon throughout the course. As you can tell from the curriculum structure of the course, there's a lot of depth and nuance to React, and we're going to get into all of that. Finally, the last topic to discuss is the relationship between the client and the server in the client and server architecture. In the world of web development, there are two main roles that are played when a user visits a web page. First, the user of the web application is the client. As a client, they use their computer's web browser to view a web application. When they're visiting the web application's URL, under the hood, they're actually making a request for resources that are hosted on a computer somewhere out there in the world. Luckily, the internet is equipped to direct this resource to that very computer which contains the proper resources. That computer will be running a server, and the server's purpose is to respond to that web request with the proper web application resources, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files which construct the web application on the browser. It sends those documents back to the client visiting the URL, and then the browser recognizes with the HTML, CSS, and JS that it's now viewing a web application and it should present something amazing for the user. All right, that covers it, the client-server architecture. To recap overall, the client computer makes a request to the server computer for the HTML, CSS, and JS resources to display a web application. It's a pretty crucial topic to understand since we'll soon be setting up our own local servers that our browsers are going to interact with. It's always good to review these fundamentals because you can't really have any of these basic concepts missing once you're hired to code or decide to create your own projects and web applications. All right, with that, we're ready to dive into the code and start building React-based web apps. If you enjoy this content, head to davidtkatz.com. There, you'll find links to full courses as well as to reach out and connect with me. For React and Redux in particular, you'll want to check out udemy.com/React Redux Bootcamp. This is a course I made to help you learn React and Redux the right way and to turn you into React and Redux developer. Okay, see you in the next one.